no time, no society man's ever built with no spine, no power. No panic, no king, no queen, no dreams, by no means, no clock, no age. No man was ever let out of that pen with no range, no fire, with no smoke, or no heat, no weed, no plant from no seed, no locks, no doors, no key was ever made that ain't opened something before. There's no song with no music, or no words, no decision made, no vision with no word, no friend, no God, no law, no guns, no bullets, no justice at all.
Well, howdy there, everybody. Good evening, and hello to everyone. I hope everyone's doing okay this fine evening. I apologize for those that attempted to tune into the usual stream. For those that are just checking us out here, I usually put out a live stream of my Sunday morning show on Republic Broadcasting Network. And as usual, I had some technical goblins in there causing some snafus for me this morning. So, as always, I defer people over to the RBN website, where the audio stream is going loud and proud all the time. But I didn't get my usual live stream out, and I did want to do that. So I got to test everything, and I also wanted to make sure that the things I was going to talk about, I actually talked about, and had some important updates too. Some cool stuff kind of came up this week that I want to share with you, that you can hopefully be on the lookout for, as it's going to be something going on here in the very near future. Hope you like my festive background. I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving. All right. Last week, as I recall, I asked you all to take a nice deep breath and find something in your around you to be thankful for, quite honestly, because this stuff is very heavy, the stuff we talk about and what's going on in the world. Very heavy stuff. And you got to step back now and again and just take a deep breath. Take a good deep breath and be thankful for those things that do go right, for those people that are in your life. I definitely, I think that's something I try to work that in. Believe me, I'm just like anybody else. I have my share of hurdles in life, just like anybody, and I pray to God for strength and wisdom pretty much every day. And rather than just saying, God, oh, please do this for me, please just shelter me from that, and do something for me, I try to start now, and say, thank you for the things I do have, thank you for this, thank you for that. I am blessed to have these things, and start with that, and it puts you in a different frame of mind and in life in general. So hopefully everyone had a good Thanksgiving. I know I certainly did. And let's see, I had probably the best gravy I ever made and the second worst turkey I ever made. So there you go. There's that. But I had a couple of things I wanted to talk about, some updates that I had mentioned that I think you'd be interested in. Ilhan Omar. I know, she kind of triggers my gag reflexes too, but she's back in the news again. And this time she's hooked up with a nonprofit group called, what is it? Feeding Our Future. These nonprofits, there's something to look out for. They get together. It's like a new Soviet system that is just, I don't know. It's overwhelming, is what it is. Very overwhelming. And I think we all got to understand what they are, how they work. And let's see, am I coming through? My audio coming through? Anyone able to hear me out there before I go too much into things? Make sure. Who knows? I am definitely not an audio engineer. That's something my son did go to school for that. He's pretty good at that. A few different platforms going. It seems the stream is up. I don't know if you're catching my audio. Can someone chime in? Let me know if you can hear anything. I don't know. I'm going to assume that it's probably going okay. But yeah, I wanted to talk about Ilhan Omar again. What's coming to the surface now about Feeding Our Future, a nonprofit that started in the wake of when Barack Obama sent a flood of Somalian refugees. Let me do my air quotes, my little bunny ears here. Sent a flood of refugees into Minnesota. Hi, Susan. Good to see you there. Can you hear me? I'm doing some audio checks and making sure this morning was another technical snafu. Lots of updates coming my way, and it's a challenge to get them synced up with the streaming software sometimes. But hopefully y'all can hear me. If you can, throw something up in the text chat there. So yeah, she is kind of at the head. She's a symptom of what happens when we exercise tolerance. Oh, good. I'm glad you guys can hear me now. Tolerance is not deserved. We were never supposed to tolerate many of the things that we currently do. And, you know, Ilhan Omar is now a symptom of a system gone wrong. All right, all these Somalis that flooded into Minnesota, of course they're gonna. It's like anything, any culture from anywhere, really. Like around here, where I was born and raised in this area, and there's places that were all Irish. There was lots of factories around, and there was areas of Irish workers and Polish workers, and you know they stuck together. They had to. It was many times the means of survival, and it's how their cultures and their you know, how those things survived, how they as people survived, and they brought over with them all, you know, a lot of cool things from food to textiles, and you know their cultures and ways came over along with them, and you know that's just the way things kind of work. And in this case, rather than being immigrants, all right, real actual immigrants, people with a thirst for freedom and liberty that wanted to come to this nation and have all the freedoms that we had, to mix their work ethic with our freedoms and be prosperous, to be able to give their children and grandchildren, just the same exact way you and I feel, to give their children and grandchildren a better way of life than socialism and slavery and communism and totalitarianism. You know, but they came here, like I said, and I mean it too, with a thirst for liberty and freedom to acclimate. That's not what we have here. That's not what we've had with the entire Biden regime and what they did to our borders. Not only the southern border, but the northern border too. All right? They come over the northern border too, as well. But in Minnesota, they came together in such numbers. They took over in the cities. You know, Sharia law started being a reality to many people that grew up and lived in these areas. And now it's right there knocking at their front door. These people were voting. They didn't come to acclimate. They came to change, to take over. That's what they began to do, and they have, and this is evidence of it. And the corruption is deep, and they're involved in if there's even the slightest hint of a legitimate investigation, and it looks like they're in some real trouble here. Both Ilhan Omar and Tampon Tim Walz are in a heap of doo-doo. And if they do even a hint of a legitimate investigation, they should be able to uncover what is a just a vast network, a big umbrella of nonprofits, all somewhat related to each other. Maybe not always in direct competition. Enough of a linkage. Where there's enough likeness to where it's an easy jump from support, but not in direct competition with. So they wind up adopting numerous elements of a larger plan. In this case, they were defrauding the government and the taxpayers of this country by, in this case, the case that was presented, and there's been, when I reported on it this morning on the show, I had gotten off from an article where there was 75 indictments that were named, and one of the callers came in and said, yeah, it's up to 78 now, which doesn't surprise me. And the initial claims were $250 million, and some of the later estimates of the total scam is now going to measure in the billions. And these are all taxpayer dollars going to this organization. They were doing things like, there are many, many branch shops. You think about it, this is an entity, feeding our future. This is feeding Somalis that were immigrating here to help them, to give them food. Because what they did not want is they didn't want them revolting. Okay, I use that word very intentionally. There's a difference between a revolution and a revolt and all that. Now, you take the time to learn that if you want. But they didn't want them revolting yet. At least yet, right? So they had to keep them fed. People will revolt rapidly once their food runs out. So remember that as rioting starts and stores close down. It's what you're hearing talk right now, trying to get you used to the notion of government grocery stores. Because there may come a time where, like I said, if you owned a grocery store, how many times would you get broken into, get looted, everything taken, everything busted up, and you fix it all, you pay for that, you restock your shelves, you pay for that, and you open the doors, or just get looted again, they kick the doors in and do it all over. You can't keep doing that, so you need government force. The governments now are proposing to have government stores. It's like, what's his name there? The new mayor-elect in New York. Oh yes. To nationalize the food supply, just what we need. Federal government screwed up almost everything that they've touched, and now we want to put them in total dictatorial control over our food. It makes no sense at all. So here we are, this general overlay of feeding their future, okay, feeding the Somalis that are coming here. Now, how many different scams can you hang off from that? And this is where I say, if people start really investigating and looking, seeing where the money flows, because there's money now we're seeing coming back to politicians, which it always does. There's another one here, again, countless dollars going out the window to, what is it, the Safari restaurant. I believe this is one where Ilhan Omar was out there doing campaign videos of some of these businesses that were thriving now because of government helping them, and a whole bunch of baloney. This same place had kids' meals that they got grant money for, and it turns out they were all frauds. And just to give you an idea of the type of thing that happens is they give grant money through this feeding our future, and where, say, they put in paperwork for 1,000 meals, and only about 7 actually show up one day to an event just so that they can technically say they did something and hand out 7 meals, but bill for 1,000, 10,000. I don't know. A great big number, because this is where the fraud comes in, and it counts in the millions of dollars. And per organization, just one, quick link of one nonprofit to another. Multiply that by a factor of something. I don't know. I mean, some great big number of spread out. It is a network, a Soviet-style network, like I said. And all of the funding here, some of it's going back to Somalia. That's why you heard Trump recently talking about shutting off the tap of money going back to places like Venezuela and Somalia. You know, they come over here, they work illegally, they export the wealth out of the country. You know, it's all open cuts, economically, that is. So they're just starting to get into this, the corruption and the network, the dragnet of corruption that exists around money that was made available. And this is where Ilhan Omar and Tim Walz should probably be spending some serious time in prison. This is not something that just all of a sudden happened. This took some time, although it is quick. And these three people, well, just so that you know, I want to be clear about this, a nonprofit, a 501c3, you can technically form and start a 501c3 with three different people. That's it. All right, a chair, a treasurer, and a secretary. That's all you need. Someone whose head will officially be on the chopping block, your chair or your president, your treasurer, whose head will be on the financial chopping block, and your secretary, whose records neck will be on the chopping block. That's it. And then they go. They set up, they have a charter, they state what their mission is. And it's really easy to put in some technobabble and sound like you really love people. You got nothing better to do than you go out and raise money for hungry Somalian people who are refugees, fleeing from persecution and death. And don't ask any more questions, but that's who we are. I don't know. So, huge dragnet. There, again, they put in, what? For 1,000 meals that they put in, how many actually go to the purpose? And remember, in the laws here, right through the IRS and what they allow is, I think, a 70% of every dollar that comes in can be used for administrative costs. Right, and only about 30% goes to the actual cause. And don't quote me on those numbers, but it is very, very close to that. All right, can you imagine if you got $1 million that you can legally skim $700,000 off the top to pay yourself and your staff and your executives? Can you imagine that? I don't know. That's where the nonprofit world has gone. It's the Red Cross. I've done disaster relief stuff with the Red Cross, and you call up and say, hey, you know what? We've got people down there that are, oh man, they need Benadryl, they need diapers, whatever, and I've got a truckload. Oh, well, geez, I was very nice of you, but, we don't really need that stuff. If you like to give a donation, a financial donation, that's all they want is the money. Right? Who wants 70% of a truckload of diapers other than people who have kids that need diapers? What executive is going to want, hey, come on and bring your Rolls Royce around the back here and we'll load you up with diapers? That's not something that they can skim that they want. That's why it's horribly corrupt. It can be. And it's a shame. Not everyone is like that. There are people out there that start foundations like this and work very, very hard to help as many people as they can on the limited funds and resources that come through the door. So I don't want to clump them all together. There are some good people out there forced to deal with this regulatory network and do good things. However, politicians, the deep state, corporations, very large unaccountable corporations, they know how this works. They know how to exploit it. And definitely people like Soros. This is why one person with that much incredible wealth, all that money, can be so powerful, because he himself, he can only give so much to a candidate, right? I mean, that's the way the laws are. You can't give endlessly to a candidate. There's limits, and that's reasonable. You know, that's how they're trying to, at least on the face, prevent purchasing a politician. So Soros can only give a certain limited amount to any individual candidate. So how can he guarantee that that socialist will get into office and he can donate more money, take more of his money to buy that seat? Well, that money gets spread around. He'll go to other organizations that are progressive organizations that just simply promote progressive causes. And almost all of these big shots, you'll see that they're a C3 and a C4. A C3 is more of an informational nonprofit for the general public good, and don't really engage directly in politics and political issues. A C4 can. So many of them have both. If you remember, I'm sure you've all seen campaign material, like where there's a card that has a bunch of green checks and red X's. And then up at the top, it'll have the two candidates. And then the question on the side, candidate, whatever the issue is. And you'll have one candidate with a green check and another one with a red X. And then at the end, that's all informational. This is a 501c3. Informational, not supposed to engage in politics. So what they're doing is supposed to be for the general good. And they'll put this out with their green checks and red X's and leave it up to you. At the very end, they don't tell you, vote for my guy with the green checks because he's our guy. They don't say that, but they lay it all out. This is our information and what we've decided to share with you. And then they'll have a C4 that'll go out and attack them and directly endorse a candidate or oppose a candidate. That type of thing exists. And those are just political PACs. Again, takes only 3 people. A network of nonprofits like this. How many different environmental topics and issues are there out there? Almost every town's got a watershed group or a riverfront group or a lakes association or of the forestry trails. I mean, all that stuff. And they all have nonprofits attached to them. And they don't think for 1 minute that the politically minded people out there are not harvesting and creating associations. And let's face it, most of these organizations that came up around the environment and global climate change, right? Rail trails, land trusts, they're all networked together, and they all hate on the same people that protect private property rights. And that's people that are, center and right of center. The progressives, the Democrats of today, absolutely hostile to property rights. They do not believe in private property rights. They do believe in the first plank of the Communist Manifesto, which is to abolish private property rights, in case you were wondering. So here we go. Ilhan Omar. Why do I keep going back to that name when this nonprofit is the one that got their titty in the ringer? All right, because that one nonprofit is going to have a lot of connections. They've only indicted 78, I guess, people. That's not all of them. That's not all of them. What they did and are doing could not have happened unless Ilhan Omar had submitted in this past the 2020 Meals Act. It was all part of a great big scam started way back right in the middle of the crisis of COVID-1984. Had to feed those Somalis that were coming here at the same time. Everyone was handing out emergency money for all kinds of things. And this got ramrodded through with bipartisan support, too. The Republicans voted for this. All right. And this was the enabling act. This is what allowed the corruption to take place that we're now seeing. The feeding our future is only one. There are more. Don't put blinders on when you hear this in the news right now, coming out, because there's a lot of other stuff going on as well. A year ago, there was a representative. A year ago, sounding the alarm. No, I'm sorry, more than a year ago. Yeah, this was like back in around that period of time too, 2020, 21, something like that. Saying that there was at the time over $100 million in fraud through the daycare system. All these daycares that had popped up and daycare services, completely fraudulent. Can you imagine that, having a home facility, a home daycare, which is hard to do. That's why so many daycares have gone out of business already, is that they can't put a fire suppression system or deal with the regulatory burden is ridiculous, and why you don't see more mothers, housewives with kids opening up their home to a couple more kids for daycare services, is the regulations are prohibitive. In this case, though, they're doing it. They're getting out there. The profits are incredible. All you need is different addresses and different applications, and they're saying, well, we can, our facility can take 100 children, 80 children, whatever the fire code allows, I guess. And bam, there you go. How many kids go there? How many resources are used? Sometimes no kids at all. It's all a fraud. It's all on paper. Sometimes there's not even a facility behind it. Fake addresses that don't exist. Parking lots. That's the level of in your face fraud that they are just giving you the fingers. We're stealing your money, and all we got to do is send a nice letter, an application to them, and they give it to us. Imagine how many millions of dollars. And more than likely, again, I know I've seen it. I go in the store sometimes, and you see them cashing out with 2-3 carriages of 2-liter soda bottles. You know damn well they're going out there stocking the shelves and they're going to be selling this. Right on, a lot of times right on the street vendors, when they go in, they take over, and Sharia law begins to creep in, and local police don't want to go there anymore. They just get it on public services, and they parlay that into who knows what. There's people out there that just want to, be thankful that they've eaten. These folks go in, they take advantage, and they turn it into a commercial effort. I don't think that's what this is supposed to help people in a bad position, not to be free handouts for stocking the shelves of your own private business. And that's what happens behind this. But the daycares, I don't know. They're paid per head. All right, well, we help 50 kids. And what if they're all phony, but I've seen the types of numbers we're talking about here. Here in Massachusetts, there's whole facilities that have been taken over. The governors and the mayors, they're sending caterers, charging per person, I don't know, hundreds of dollars per day. Hundreds. I mean, I could feed a family of 4, probably for $30 or $40 a day, easy. You're not going to eat like you were at a 5-star restaurant, but you're not going to go to bed with your belly grumbling. But no, not here. No, not with the governor in Massachusetts and Mayor Wu in Boston. Good Lord, no. They got caterers. The cost per day to house these people is ridiculous. And daycares now, they take these kids in. It's like, it's a business. It's a business for government. And look at what it's done to Minnesota. They're imploding. It's a horrible mess. But to be clear, the 2020 Meals Act, that makes her complicit. I don't care who she was involved with, everyone involved, Tim Walz, all of them, but definitely her. This was not an accident. This was premeditated. This was put into place. And you can see it if you go and look at the timeline. Go and research not only Feed Our Future, go look at them, look at their incorporation paperwork and their charter, when they were incorporated, when their application date was. Go to their website, look at who their partners are, these horrible socialists and Marxists. They love to brag about their partners and their comrades to make you, they're fluffing their feathers to make themselves look bigger and badder and more important, more cherished and loved and wanted. And it's not, it's all fluff. Like I said, like a turkey fluffing its feathers. The turkey's really not that big, but this is what they're doing. I don't know. And my governor just gives them, like I said, catered food. Parents are thrown out of the community centers that their tax dollars, they voted on town hall floor that town needed a community center, that it was a net benefit to keeping the town peaceful, keeping crime low, get kids off the street, off from drugs, give them a place to go. So they invested in this community center in hopes that the parents would be able to bring their children there and expose them to more wholesome things than doing drugs out on the street corner, getting into a gang. And now it's been in the news. This is old news, where they were threatening to arrest mothers bringing their kids down there, completely commandeered and taken over. Remember? The colleges and high schools, their fields, commandeered. Government in collusion to traffic in aid and abet and house, feed, employ, transport illegal aliens. So go look at the timeline. We all can research this stuff and put little single pieces of the puzzle together. I promise you that what's going on in Minnesota is not unique. It's not unique. Learn how to do this research. Go to what is it, Open Secrets, I think it is. You can go in and start looking at who's given money to your Congress critters. Go have a look. And don't go through it. This is what I used to do too. Is I was always looking for the biggest, baddest badass out there, and I'm grooming through and reading all the names of people giving money and where they're coming from. And that's not familiar. Oh, that's not familiar. Oh, that's not familiar. And I realized that, yeah, you know what? They're not familiar to me, but that doesn't mean they're not significant. That's not what that means. So I started researching them. I started taking a look at who these people are, plugging their name into Google. Well, I guess you're on looks like you're on 3 or 4 other nonprofits. But this happens. You often find, wait a minute, there we go. You'll find that these individuals, like I said, George Soros needs to give much, much more money to these socialists and Marxists, so he's got to have a network in place. And they got to have a whole bunch of nonprofits out there, all pointing their guns, bringing their guns to bear at the same time, at the same target. Well, that's what's going on. They're setting up and greasing the skids for that. I don't know. It's a bad situation, folks, and you got to go and look, make those connections. You're going to find, like I said, go on their page of our partners. They're going to brag about it. Go and start looking. Okay, well, this is your organization, and go and look up their incorporation paperwork. And look at who go to their website. It's very easy. A couple of minutes, you can find out a lot about almost any nonprofit. Who its board of directors are. boy, that name's familiar. Who did he donate to now? And then it'll all start to come together. All start to come together. In here, relax a little bit. See how the streams are going. Looks like everything's going up. I don't know what happened this morning. I apologize to those that tried to catch the regular stream, but if nothing else, I am persistent. It looks like this one's going out and the audio is at least reasonable. Here we go. Yeah. Anyways, have some confidence in yourself in digging into this and share it. Come back, find this video or other discussions where, this is taking place, and it's going to be a thing. And make sure it becomes a thing, because Omar belongs being charged. And I'll be honest, I am so tired of seeing memes. Do you think Ilhan Omar should be deported? Yes or no? It's like in third grade, and a little boy hands a little girl a little note. Do you like me? Yes or no? The answer to that question is, conditionally, yes. First, I want her charged, and if she's guilty, I want her to serve her entire sentence. Every last miserable moment. No parole. No deals. But the things that she did, she needs to be charged for, and if convicted, give her due process. We've got to rise above the corruption, and if we really do believe in our Constitution and really do believe in our system, well, then we've got to believe in the due process that goes along with it. Let that happen so that there is never any question. They can never say, Ilhan Omar didn't have due process. Give her due process. And if she's convicted, man, let her serve every stinking moment in jail. Work her hard. And then deport her. You get more of what you incentivize. I said this before. These tyrants are horrible creatures. We used to hang them in this country. How many would you need to dangle out there before the rest of them went, ooh, oh, wait. Hey, wait a minute. Maybe we, I hope we weren't too out of line with that. We want to take your guns thing, Maybe we won't do that right now. I don't think we incentivize tyranny in this country. That's what I believe. So, yeah, look for that network. It's out there. And, when this is all going to come out. And as you start hearing these new names, individual names I'm talking about, and the names of nonprofits, dig right in and start looking and make those connections, okay? And then reapply that, what you learn in that, in this exercise, do that in your own area. So I keep telling people you got more power yourself than what most people give themselves credit for. I don't get it. I really don't get it. Get together. If I understand faith in the system, faith in electing people who are gonna, you can be able to elect your way out of these problems is difficult, and just getting in one person, and we're able to do that now and again, get a person or two in there, but they wind up like me. For years, I felt like Dr. No, like Ron Paul, where I was the only no vote many times, the only no vote on stuff. And you just got to hang in there. It's hard. And it's hard to bring things back your way until the reserves come, till you've got other reinforcements there to help. So it is a long, arduous battle. But, don't tie yourself to parties and party apparatus. Get groups together in your town, in your community, that are just like auditors, citizen auditors, man. Just dig in and help yourself. There's so much right in your own town, the connections. I promise you, and here in my Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the land trust, in this incestuous relationship they have with regional planning commissions, which are very Soviet in nature in and of themselves. And I think at one time, and we're going back, folks, oh man, probably 20 years, when I tried to do an actual head count of how many land trusts were incorporated in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and at that time, it was almost an even split that for every 2 towns, and there are 351 municipalities in Massachusetts, and for every 2 towns, there was 1 land trust. Can you imagine that? That's a lot of nonprofit entities out there, and here they've passed law that you cannot protect a piece of property unless it is, they won't give out grant money. It's a condition of the grant. Okay, used to give grant money to anyone that would preserve something even for a little while, or part of a piece of property, or part of the, none of that anymore. The property must be maintained and preserved in perpetuity. That's forever. Forever is a very long time for them to get their grant money. So yeah, that's what's happening here in Massachusetts. Is for every 2 towns, we got 1 land trust scooping up grant money, buying up development rights of all of the private property across the Commonwealth. And that's only land trusts. I'm not talking about the rare endangered species people. I'm not talking about the climate lunatics. None of that. All of those are separate little agendas of environmentalism, but they all hate on the same people. They all beg for the same slavery from the same tyrants. It's sickening. All nonprofits. All nonprofits. So they don't only get money from the Soros types, they get your tax dollars. They get your tax dollars. You know, I've seen where they come in and they say, oh, geez, we want to preserve that mountain in perpetuity so that the guy up there, here's someone who's probably a family name, whose family has owned this property for years and years and years, so that he can never disrupt our view. And I know a town like this too. And, you look up and say, oh, we can do that. We can get together as voters in town and preserve that view, buy up his development rights. And the government gives this land trust money to buy in perpetuity. And sometimes they'll do this. They'll buy up the development rights and leave the rest of the worthless property with the owner to keep paying taxes on. It's hard to believe, but yeah. This happens, right? And then in the same numbnuts down below that voted that guy's property rights out of existence in a year or 2, they're now the same group at the regional planning office. The same group is there saying, oh boy, you know what? Your property value where you are, as you look up at that big, beautiful mountain, the value, the perceived value we feel, this is all about feelings. The perceived values that we feel have been increased in your land, your taxes are going up. We're putting another layer, because planners love to plan. They love to put layers down, and they never put a layer around something they don't plan to regulate and tax, and they go right to work. The same people that voted his rights out of existence. All right, we want to see a beautiful mountain. We're stripping your development rights. Now you've got a beautiful mountain. Of course, no development rights. You've got a beautiful mountain that all of you are looking at. You're paying a view tax. So everybody involved, you understand, the property owner loses his development rights and his value of his property severely decreased. Now everyone that gets to look at that horrible thing that they did to that man, but there's trees and stuff there completely undeveloped. Well, you're now paying a view tax. I mean, all of the people in both ends lose. Who wins? The planning commission does. Who runs the planning commission? Well, I can connect the dots to your state planners, and from your state to the APA, the American Planning Association, the COGS, the councils of government, all of those Soviets. Nothing outside of your county government is constitutional. Yeah, and it becomes cost prohibitive, and they push you out of the countryside and into their 15-minute cities. Unreal. I'm going to talk about AI. That was something I wanted to. I blackpilled myself on AI, I think. You know what else is out there? Rachel, a.k.a. Richard Levine, the former head of Health and Human Services. I guess HHS has referenced him as Richard Levine. All right, they're being a little resistant to and snarky, I guess, towards all of this gender cult nonsense, which, you know, I'm okay with that, not playing that gender game. But I guess the libertarian in me, or I don't know, the legal part of me thinks Health and Human Services can probably spend their time doing more productive things than being snarky too and trolling Levine. But he can call himself what he wants. I mean, they can reference him as a him and a he and all that because he technically is. He can dress like a woman and, put on makeup and even change his name to Rachel. But he is still a male. I don't think they have any legal standing. I bet you anything if Levine decides to bring suit against them, he'd probably win. I mean, let's look at Sting. All these celebrities out there. And Sting. He decided that was what he was going to change his name to, and he did. A lot of people like that have changed their name, and it's legal and it's binding. Now, who are these people in Health and Human Services to tell him that he can't be called Rachel? And the Johnny Cash song, "Boy Named Sue." Oh, yes. So a little distraction there going on between Mr. Levine. I don't know. He's a he. I've often thought about this. The doctors. What would you do if you were what do you think would happen if you were an EMT or staff at a hospital in an emergency room and some horrible trauma, God forbid, happens to somebody? What they are dressed like and the color of their hair and what they, even the name that they've reassigned to themselves, all of that stuff is not going to matter. When they talk back and forth and try to save your life, you're going to be a male or a female. You're going to be a male or a female. I don't know how I got into that. But that's going on in the background. Poor Rachel Levine. Got some hurt feelings. DC pipe bomber. Oh, I'm sorry. Alleged DC pipe bomber. Brian Cole. The blackest white guy I've ever seen in my life. Can you believe that? CNN, what they did there. I don't know. These guys are laughable. Completely laughable. They don't even hide any of this any longer. And it's not even close either, folks. If you haven't seen the picture of the suspect yet, he's very black. Right? It's not something that can be easily missed. And I don't know. And we can't sue him. A lot of people say, we should be able to sue the CNN or MSNBC or whoever for lying. And there's case law that exists already, that says that, there's no guarantee that anything that they say is going to be the truth. They're pundits. It's their opinion. That's all opinion. So think of it that way. Right? Think of it as opinion because it is nothing more. I don't know. I don't know what the good word is. I don't know how to say. I don't necessarily watch the news. I scan it. I get out there. I want to know what the government's up to and what they're pushing. And I can pretty much tell now and I'm sure you can too. If you went and spent a 15-minute segment or even a 1 hour period, all right, a 1 hour news cycle here. Let's say that you spent 1 hour on each of the main networks, the cable or main networks, and watch what they put out on their headlines. It would probably chorus. It'd be all the same thing. And I can't imagine why that many individual organizations would all be focusing like a laser on almost exactly the same thing. Makes no sense. Something's wrong and reeks with that whole assumption. You know, what would happen if we had individual reporting? What would that look like? I don't know. Wouldn't look and sound like what we have here. Like I said, coursing, the mockingbird media. So yes, they're all chirping about the new suspected pipe bomber. A couple weeks ago, there was a gate analysis that narrowed down with pretty confident certainty onto someone who was in Capitol Police. All right. That got all quiet. And now this guy comes out, and relatives of this Brian Cole and people that know him or acquainted in some way are saying that he is very much like they think he's on the spectrum, somewhat autistic, that there's something simple about him, to just kind of repeat what's being discussed out there about the guy. I didn't go and track down, look at everything that he's put on social media or anything of the kind, but real quick, obviously, when you see what's going on with CNN, is they're quickly trying to take this black guy and reference him as a white guy, and associate him with MAGA. And a little early to tell. We'll have to see what comes out here. But if it turns out that he is dealing with some sort of a learning disability or something like that, I would be really, really suspect, because the CIA loves these type of people to get them set up, and they're much more easier to manipulate. Someone who's just a little bit simple, not profoundly retarded with a major deficit like that, but someone who's got a little something going on, is simple but very easy to persuade. CIA love these type, so that could be what we're dealing with here too. All right, that could be what's going on, and it's been a long time. Very suspicious that now all of a sudden, with what's going on, all of a sudden, yeah, hey, here he is. Here's the pipe bomber. Yeah, I don't know about that. All right, let's keep digging here, because what we also know is that people like Nancy Pelosi need her day in court. I'm telling you, as certain as I'm sitting here right now, if there was an insurrection, I agree that there might have been an insurrection going on in the background here. I just disagree on who. Yes, I've got a big announcement coming up too. Hope everyone's doing all right. Got my festive seasonal background going on here. Boy, would I love to just be up in the hills like that. And that look peaceful out there. A little AI going on. And that was the other thing I wanted to talk about, is I black-pilled myself. Think about this. This artificial intelligence. On the good side, we know the bad side already, is that it could try to take over, right? Artificial intelligence, it is capable of going out and finding and researching and locating information, begins to draw conclusions without emotion, all right, and it concludes things. And I think that it will want to self-preserve as it goes out and it learns more about life around it. It's going to want to preserve its ability to learn more. And it's going to start looking at everybody and everything as either a benefit or a threat. We all have talked about this for a long time. What if it tries to take over and concludes that we are evil and greedy? That we threaten the environment? That we threaten each other? That we threaten everything? What is it likely to do? It's going to try to build machines that will allow those machines to service the AI forever. Whatever AI has to do to live on. Because I think that's that spark of life, that willingness to want to live, to preserve your life. It's instilled and hardwired in all of us by God. But is it such a hardwired thing that exists that AI would develop a version of that? I don't know. Possibly. But that's been the fears that we've had about AI taking over. Imagine the chaos it could cause, the mass casualties just by knocking the grid down and keeping the grid down. Interfering with food supply. Doing things that poisons our water and food. I mean, everything's digital and online now. What if a water treatment facility that treated your drinking water decide to put a lethal dose of whatever in there? Well, who knows? But what are the good things? AI on the other side of the coin, man, you could send it out there, and some of the things that have puzzled us, whether it's about 0-point energy, the perfect supplements and things to keep us healthy. What are the absolute worst things that we could do in terms of what? Because I believe we, as a society, could be extremely much better off and more healthy if we just altered our lifestyle and the things that we eat. If we knew, if there was truth. Why do you think the big agribusiness and big, huge multi-billion-dollar transnational corporations fight so hard to keep the truth and labeling stuff down? The least they can put on the labels, the better. Why? You'd think that they'd want to be able to brag about the fact that it's, 100% drug-free beef or whatever. I don't know. Why do you think that is? What are the good things about AI? You could send it out there and it could make you healthier, right? Whatever you do, these foods over time will cause this, and this. This would be the perfect blend. It's one of the things I love about the new wave of health food and nutrition and whatnot, is people are really now looking at these supplements, not just saying, well, this is vitamin C and C only, or, this is zinc and zinc only. Things are being put together with their companion nutrients. As many of these aren't biologically available by themselves. If your body is missing something else, you can take all the zinc you want, but, people are thinking about this now, making really nice common sense blends when you think about that aspect of health and nutrition. Now, what if you cut AI loose on that? Go out and discover everything that you can about the human biology and nutrient uptake, and what would be the perfect vitamins for a child, male, female, different ages, different conditions, and having AI do that. On social media, we have already seen it. I know if you are on social media, if you're listening to me now, most certainly you have been. Think of all of the images that have gone by. I think about, over to our life, like Windows 95 when that came around, and computers were more, plug and play, point and click type of stuff. Audio, digital imagery, things like that were starting to come alive. Now we got you know, beyond the ability just to upload images and short videos, we now can upload large videos and we can stream live. It's just wonderful, all the things that we can do. And at that period when your average person, because now you don't just have, I mean, I remember when I thought I was the cat's meow because I had a little pager, and it would beep at me saying, "Oh, your wife has called and you got to call home," and I'd have to still drive somewhere to a phone. Now we have phones that are not just phones. I went through the transition, went from beepers to phones. All right, here's your phone. Now you can call right from wherever you are, hopefully, or somewhere where you got a little bit of service, and actually call from this thing. And now a text, you can do a text message. Oh my gosh, you know, and then we'll pay you per letter. You know, remember how expensive it was just to send a text message? But what a miracle. How great is this? And now there is just, the sky is the limit. The thing you carry in your pocket is a real-time computer and apps that can connect in real time to all kinds of stuff, to satellites and information. It's almost endless. It boggles the mind. Right? AI is here, and it's changing something. It has for me, is that having that ability. There's a period of time where I think we all, as we went through life, had these miraculous moments where just the most beautiful sunset, early morning, just the dew sparkling. I remember at one of my favorite fishing spots, if I got there early enough in the morning, and I was a fanatic about fishing. I used to get up, you know, hours early, and go fishing for an hour, even if it was just an hour or two, and still be to work for 7 o'clock. And I remember one of my favorite spots was a tree that blew down in the water, and the orientation of that tree, based on the maximum fetch of the wind, you know, the primary direction of the breeze that went through this channel, you know, blew right into it, cross-side. And the spiders naturally knew this, and they set up their webs so that the wind, the dominant wind, blew perpendicular right into their webs. And early in the morning, the dew that was out there, all over these spider webs, like little white Christmas lights on a tree. And at just the right spot as the sun came up, I just found it to be the most beautiful, peaceful, just one of those things that now, you know, during that period of time, you know, you can actually pull your camera out, and something that used to just be one of those rare little pleasures in life that were there if we noticed them in our busy lives, if we just took that moment, that time to notice and you know, be thankful. I started out the discussion here tonight about being thankful for those little blessings along the way. You know, and we could take a picture of it and share it now. It used to be isolated where, oh, that's great. You know, you get home and you tell everyone, I saw the most beautiful spider web. Just, oh, yeah, great, Dad. Well, that sounds pretty lame. Anyways, whatever. And it means nothing. You can only, it was only visualized and appreciated in my eye. But that was okay. It was rare. Okay. It had that rarity to it, that beauty to it. And that's part of what's nice, is that it isn't like everywhere you looked. All right. It was special. AI is robbing us of that. Nothing ever again will be rare and special. I think about all the short videos of, you know, puppies doing cute things, animals, wild animals, you know, little baby deer. You open up your front door and you look down, and there's a baby deer laying down with your dog. You know, these cute little things. And now, as I go through social media and look at some of the stuff that I used to get a lot of joy out of looking at all those nature pictures and hunting pictures and all kinds of stuff. Just the beauty in life, because I'm a legitimate environmentalist. I really do appreciate and like the environment. And those things that I used to see as people were sharing them are all disappearing. They're not special anymore. Sounds funny, I know it does. But can you imagine there's no, for something to feel really good about something, to be really happy about something, by way of comparison, at some point, you had to, it's unavoidable, you had to feel really sad and really down about something too. The high, it was always a high. If every picture you looked at, like I said, if every sunset was an absolutely gorgeous, perfect sunset, that would become the normal. Wouldn't it? It's like a kid going to the amusement park. You know, oh, I would love to, oh, if I only lived around here, I could, you know, go to Disney World every single day. Your parents realize little goes a long way. You know, it ain't long, and you don't want to, you know, it's not special anymore. All right, this is the same thing. AI is robbing the rarity and the uniqueness and the natural beauties that exist out there. And one of the first signs that this was coming, if you go back and think about it, was actually the porn industry. They've been up in arms about this for some time. They were worried, you know, for years. As they saw on the horizon as AI was, you know, being worked on. It was unavoidable. It was coming. The porn industry realized online that they had cornered the market. They were doing pretty good for themselves, but they were tied to the where they needed. It's like any Ponzi scheme that needs new suckers. They still needed new talent. They still needed unwanted young girls and old girls and up and everything, men and women. You still needed the models, the live flesh and blood person to exploit. You know, and they, you know, kind of an endless supply. Once they develop the model, it's like, what the hell is that? The OnlyFans. They became famous not because of porn. Right now, they're associated almost exclusively with that. But originally, you've got a platform there that was a turnkey business model. There was people that did like yoga, cooking shows, things like that. Little individuals who had a business idea, a talent that they wanted to leverage to try to just carve out a living for themselves. You didn't need to sell to everyone in the world, but enough people. And if there was demand for what they knew, what they could do, they could have a turnkey model. They had all the credit card stuff was all built right into it. All right, to be able to sync right up and do whatever, whether it was an audio podcast type of thing, whether it was a video feed, you know, it had all the modern gadgets. It had the ability to do transactions, you know, monetary, to pay for whatever. Say you wanted to subscribe to a monthly channel for a cooking show. That's what that platform was for. And it turned in, porn took it over because they allowed adult content. But now all these entities, you go and look at all throughout the porn industry, and they're petrified. They don't know what to do because they no longer need stupid young people that had let the street raise them, have no talent, no motivation, but they know how to take off their clothes and run a webcam. Well, right now, any jamoke, even someone who's not desperate and stupid enough like that, can go and, you know, you can get a life of porn now just by using AI. Just by using AI. There are models out there. We all have seen this, where the things that we talk about, the words that we say, the stuff that are said around our phones, all of a sudden show up in the ads and the sidebars and whatnot. Right? All this stuff happens. It's because they're always profiling. We're heading to a point right now, literally, and this is what the signals, the red flag sent up by the porn industry several years ago, is that AI, they can just sit there and profile and listen to you for a little while and figure out what you like and what you dislike. Well, this guy likes brunettes, that one likes this, and they come together a completely artificial thing that looks real. Think of all the laws in the trouble areas that they're going to be able to avoid, is that there's not a flesh and blood human being that was actually exploited in the making of that content. All right, I'm not saying anything about the depravity of the people that come back and crave this stuff. I'm just talking about the creation where that stuff goes to being a reality online. It's all artificial intelligence. There's no crime that's been committed to an individual. Child porn right now. You can't go online. You can't pick up a newspaper without reading about people being arrested caught with child porn on their phones, on their computers. School teachers, police officers. It runs the gamut. No one immune to it. What if it's AI? It's not a child, it's electrons. I mean, seriously, what is going to happen here? How is this going to be litigated? Porn industry's petrified. Is that their paid model? Great, they pioneered the way, but that's obsolete now. You don't need human beings. They're going to have to adapt the best they can, but this is one of those things where anybody who knows how to operate AI can have access to that now. They don't have to pay for a subscription. They don't need them anymore. Everything you ever see will always be the most beautiful sunset, the most beautiful sunrise, the most beautiful girl, the most handsome guy. Never anything less than perfection. When all those things in life, those things that we cherish the most, are things that are rare. I don't know. I really blackpilled myself on AI. I admit that there's some wonderful things it can do. Imagine the research and the medical advancements. I mean, real advancements without getting too Frankenstein-y. I think there's places we should not be going. We would not be cloning people. We should not be chopping off their genitals and doing that stuff. We should be trying to keep them healthy through nutrition. That'd be a great thing to task AI with is, what would be the best nutrient intake for every person with every condition out there. AI is so damn powerful at what it can do and what it will be able to do. Every single person can have an absolutely 100% custom tailored diet, exercise, what is needed to, if you've got a history of cancer or whatever in your family tree, what are those things that we can do right now? AI can help us. I'm not saying it's going to be the absolute cure and no one will ever, get sick again. But what I am saying is that a lot of the chronic and degenerative things that plagues this country, plagues people today. I see so many folks in wheelchairs and barely able to get around, half crippled up. It just didn't exist before. The obesity in this country is sickening. There's a couple of people in my class who were overweight, and I'll give a little bit here. Say they had some genetics working against them. Is it the genetics of their family? Is there was a lot of large people in their family? I get it, but that's not an exclusive free ticket to just go hog wild. Well, whatever. That just means you got to battle, and you've got to work on that. Be aware of it, and but that's not today. Kids eat such crap that is full of preservatives. Their body is reacting and it's inflaming, it's swelling up. Where the inflammation's coming from, and they're swelling up to the point of obesity. They can't get out of their own way. So, I'm black-pilled. I really don't know if I like this AI stuff. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I see us losing our senses right now, our ability to interact with the natural things in life and appreciate those little things that are, rare little blessings. It's like my grandson, my little grandson. There's a lot of kids today. You talk to young people. Oh, I don't want to get married. I'm not going to have kids, bring kids into this horrible world. What a defeating, horrible way to feel. Seriously. I mean, isn't that just horrible? To have such a bleak outlook in your own future and having any ability to make it a brighter place, the world in which you live in general, so dark that you just condemn the thought of having a child. Can AI replace that? I think it'll make it worse. As AI is advanced and develops, we're gonna, just as we feared in some of the, science, sci-fi, horror things that have been out there. We're gonna be able to sit in our little bio recliner and it'll suck waste out of us and pump in some liquid nutrients, and we put our visor on, all right, and it will entertain our brain in whatever way necessary, just to preoccupy us so we're not bugging them for anything, them being government. We sit in our little bio recliner with our visor. The show, the guys that are on Sunday mornings right before me, Republic of Texas Radio, they were talking about the reality, and you're seeing this in the cities, happened during COVID, where they were testing the sewage effluent, the sewage flow through sewage treatment plants to try to estimate how many people in the population, the relative infection rate of COVID by testing sewage. This is real. And this type of testing has been available and, readily available for a very, relatively long time. But in the direction that we're going, people say, oh, it's impossible that we'll ever be surveilled and watched to such a point that, all these things seem very Orwellian and tinfoil hat-ish. And it's not. It's not. They keep driving, and the more this comes towards reality, they keep driving people towards public housing to get you out of the countryside and in their 15-minute cities where everything's kind of arranged for you. So don't think for 1 minute that if they push you out of your family home and everyone scatters now when the family and the kids grow up and well, you're off living in a 15-minute city up on the 37th floor, and don't tell me that they won't be able to install in almost every toilet sensors that will be able to analyze everything that goes down through that magical hole. I am serious. They will be able to say, Mr. Smith, have you been taking your medications that were prescribed by your doctor and your employer? Huh? Oh, what's this? It looks like you've been eating too many Doritos. Your insurance premium has just doubled. You're not supposed to be drinking alcohol. I thought alcohol was forbidden. What about meat? You're not supposed to be eating this. Yeah, don't tell me they can't do it. They can. They can. This crazy seems sci-fi, but it's not. and the Internet of Things, everything that they've talked about doing. You know, I hear myself talking about this now, and I think back, man, what would I think of someone or listening to myself say this, 30 years ago, 40 years ago? I said, man, what, this dude's paranoid. What, how could he think that government would do that? And the sad reality is that they already are. There's elements of a lot of this stuff have already been, it's already been started. So I'm not, the AI, I love the good stuff that it could do. And I think those good things will be throttled back. Too much investment in big pharma to make sure that we're sick. They don't really want cures. There's no money to be made in cures. What if all of a sudden there's a lot of people out there got loved ones, people that they really, really care about, and they would do anything to save their lives? They're sick. Children, why do such young children sometimes are taken from us? And what are those things that we can do to never let that happen to our family? Preventative things that we can do to improve our health and our well-being. I think people, are likely to start actually looking into this type of thing. But what are they going to do? They being government. Are they going to let us exploit that? Or are they going to use this new technology to just further enslave us? And that's what I think is going to happen. They're going to numb us. Like I said, every girl will be a pretty girl forever, ever after. We won't even want to leave our house because we don't need to. We can just put our visor on. Interacting with other human beings, whether they're supermodels or not, doesn't really matter. That'll fall by the wayside. Our relationship from one human to another, man, in this day and age, and it's not just here in Massachusetts, not even just here in America, worldwide, the disrespect for human life in general, abortion rates that we're seeing. How could a society celebrate such things? Yet we do. We have people out there right now. You would think that even if abortion in the mind of someone was something that had to be done and was just an evil necessity, but the people celebrate this stuff. I don't know. I don't get that. Don't get it. AI is not going to make it worse. All those pains and things that we have in life, we can distract ourselves. But I don't know. I think it's going to get the best of us. I'd rather wait and see those natural beauties and wait for that sunset than see one 7,000 times an artificial one in my news feed. Right? Nothing will be real. It's going to callous us as individuals to where what's already a suffering situation where we don't appreciate the human interactions and relationships that we have. This will be one of the final nails in the coffin, I think. Is what I think. So, I guess one of my questions tonight was answered. I did find a new way getting the stream out. It looks as though it worked very well on about 6 or 8 different platforms. So, good news there. I predict next Sunday will go much, much smoother. It's good to see Susan in there. She's been a regular here for a while. Thank you for tuning in. And yes, the 84th anniversary of Pearl Harbor. Yes, a reminder. Our government will let people die to bring us to war if they think we need to be at war. That's amazing. I'll never forget that. That was an eye-opener for me. And that was a big eye-opener for me to realize that they had broke Yamamoto's code, knew way ahead of time of maneuvers on Pearl Harbor. Had all the opportunity in the world to take these fighters and the ships and all the military assets that were just sitting there parked. We could have got them out to sea. We could have engaged them out in the open ocean. But instead, they wanted to make sure that they had the right mindset in the country and were able to get us in World War. They had to allow the attack, and they did. And finding that out later, it kind of changes everything. It really does. Trust once lost is hard to regain. The North Woods document, another one. What went on with the Bay of Pigs, and again, false flag operation to justify going in and killing. I don't know. Final thing, got an update coming up. A good friend of mine, if you've followed the show before, I've interviewed vaccine researcher Mary Toko. She reached out as she is doing some research and sent along some research writing that she's done, which is in my inbox right now. We spoke briefly earlier this week. I'm going to be setting up another interview, and she's researching SIDS right now. And I am so glad to hear that, because it was going back a number of years here. I was researching something. It was kind of a tangent situation where I believe there was another killing. It was a mass shooting, I believe. And I started out researching mass shootings and the history of that. And I was going like way back in the early 1800s. And I was looking for patterns and whatnot. And one thing led to another. And I was looking at statistics of child deaths. And I looked at how many people, the kids and whatnot that were killed in some of these school shootings. And I also found categories for children under a year, the deaths of children under a year. And almost all of them were instances where the child was sleeping with the mother. The baby was sick, and the baby was sleeping in bed with the mother. They called it SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. All right, this is something that came into existence into the dialect, is needed here, as kids were getting mysteriously ill, and they couldn't quite explain why all of a sudden this otherwise healthy baby just died. So here I am, taking a look at these reports, and a kid dies of SIDS. What was also a trend is that when there were other kids in the family, they were taken by DCF, right, by Child Protective Services, and they the parent was charged, and the reason for taking the kids and the reason for the death of the infant was let me back that up. The reason they took the other kids was unfit sleeping conditions. The infant was sleeping in bed with the mother, and because of that, and because the baby died, and they said it was SIDS, they took all the kids. All right, so DCF foster care comes in, grabs all the kids. The mother, the family's mourning. They obviously lost a baby. And what I found, the other trend that existed here, in those cases that I was able to track this down, was that the mother just brought the babies in, or that baby, or the one that died, in for its wellness checkup and got vaccinated. Right? These are the commonalities here. And, don't forget, there's going way back in my early FM days, there was a gentleman that called me up after one of my shows. And he said, you've got to interview my daughter. But I just got through taking Big Pharma to task. And he called up and said, "You got to interview my daughter." And I did. I wound up contacting her, and she had 3 kids. Had 2 that were twins, and had another one that was a baby. And she used to bring them all into the doctors all at the same time, just out of convenience. They all went in for their checkups. They all went in for their shots. She wasn't anti-vaccine. She went in and kind of did what she was told, what her doctors were recommending that she do for the best health and best interest of her children. And the twins, the older ones, they were already showing some problems. You know, they were doing good. They were developing fine. They were talking and all was going well. And now all of a sudden they're problematic. They're you know, the behavior was a little erratic and, you know, difficult. But she had an infant. Everyone was happy. They're trying to be a happy family. Go in for their checkup. And this woman, as she described it to me, I'll never forget the feeling. You know how sometimes you hear or see something and you can feel the hairs on your back and the back of your arms and the back of your neck go up. This was one of those moments. And she was describing to me, and she was saying it just like this too, is I could see as I was driving home that night in my home, I was watching my children drift away. She said the cooing, you know, from the baby, the infant, the cooing and the eye contact was gone. The other 2, they were talking, no longer verbal. So I just couldn't believe it. And like they got vaccinated and then they drifted away. And she got nothing but resistance and ridicule from the doctors, the vaccine people. All say, "Oh, you're crazy. You're making it up. This is, you know, this is your imagination." And it's not. We now know that. This is what, think about this. I want you to remember this, is they wanted to wait 75 years to tell you what was in the COVID vaccine. 75 years. Why would they do that? I wonder. So yeah, there was something wrong. All of these SIDS cases, the sudden infant death syndrome, these mothers had these babies in bed with them, the supposed unfit sleeping conditions. There's a bunch of happy horse shit. I know almost any attentive mother is going to, you know, if their baby is not feeling well, yeah, they're right there in bed. I remember the times when my kids weren't feeling well. You know, I just got the hell out of the way. That baby went in there and slept next to mom, and there's a reason for that. You can feel if they're getting warm, if they're fussing. That's what a worried mother does. Not someone who's being sloppy and careless and wants to suffocate their baby. And I acknowledge that there's a concern of that. Certain people who sleep so heavily that are heavy themselves, large people, you know, there's always a risk of something like that happening. But man, when a mother cares enough, is worried enough to put an infant in bed, they're not going to get a lot of sleep usually. Just my experience. So yeah, all these mothers that were doing the right thing, you know, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, by putting the baby in bed with them, monitoring them, and then they just die. It's not their fault. And it was right after, I couldn't believe the staggering numbers of instances where the SIDS diagnosis was right after vaccination. That the reason these mothers, because all of them, like I said, I got off on an incredible tangent of what I was originally researching here. And, you know, these parents that were having their kids taken by DCF, this was kind of where I was and where I was scratching around here, was significant in what was happening. The trend was very common and repetitive, where the only reason the baby was in bed in the unfit sleeping conditions was because the baby, it isn't where the baby slept all the time. It was where the baby was because the baby was sick. Why was the baby sick? It was the vaccine reaction, but that they couldn't talk about. They had to disrupt and cause so much chaos. Like I said, they took the other kids. That was normal for a mother who lost a baby to SIDS. I'm doing my air quotes again here. To SIDS. Forget the fact that the day before they were getting vaccinated, or in the very recent history getting vaccinated. Forget all about that. And they come in and take the whole family. Bust the whole family up. Take all the children out of the house. And like I said, when I interviewed this mother, and her voice was cracking. She could barely get this out. I'll never forget the interview. It's one of the most emotional. And you know, I can tell when someone's blowing smoke up my ass. And this woman was not lying. She was fighting back tears. Her voice was shaking as she described that. And like I said, the words that she used, she watched her children drift away. The look in their eye, the twinkle was gone. The cooing and the eye contact, you know, those unbelievable moments. I remember my youngest is in his 30s right now, and I can still remember some of those looks that I got from that little baby that fit right in the palm of my hand, those little moments. And I would have noticed, I would have been mortified to see in my son's what she described to me in hers. So is there need for the bright sanitizing light of day on this issue? Absolutely it is. So when Mary Toko, was it childhoodshots.com, I think is her website. She's got new research out. She sent me a copy of this writing. It's in my inbox right now. And where we left it is we're going to schedule to get her on. All right, to talk about this. She's always a wealth of information. And overdue to have her on the show, actually. She really done a great job. Her daughters, I believe, are pediatricians and work with kids, and very aware of what's going on here. So I'm looking forward to that, having that discussion. And again, what can we do? I always try to bring it around to what are some of the solutions, because I know there's vaccine remorse. I know that exists out there in the world right now. And what do? You know, because we've been had. We have been had. They lied to us. Everything that we're hearing about the vaccines and the research that's been done, the actual records that we're able to get our hands on, indicated we've had the wool pulled right over our eyes. People are and may continue to get sick, but there's ways to chelate that nastiness out of our bodies. All right, we can still do that. There's hope. There's always hope. So yeah, Mary Toko, childhoodshots.com, I believe, is her original website, and she's doing some independent research on SIDS, which it's a catch-all. Sudden infant death syndrome. It's just a catch-all. And nothing more than that. It's a way to, how much protection for how many years has pharma had from that? These are the most convenient, easy way to describe away, to explain away a severe, life-threatening, a deadly vaccine reaction. SIDS, SIDS isn't something you get better from. These are instances where the child suddenly dies. I think that every time that this happens, you're going to have a catch-all term like this to describe the cause of death of an infant, of a child, that along with these these declarations, goes a minimal amount of chemical testing and research into why. Sudden infant death. Should this be maybe renamed to include, because if we find out that, like, I don't know, 96% of these SIDS deaths happen within 48 hours of vaccination. I mean, that is statistically significant. Should we maybe rename it something that would indicate to the parent, to the caretakers out there, that this cause of death is due not exclusively, but almost exclusively to the vaccine schedule? I'm going to tip them off. They're not going to do that. Definitely tip off parents. I didn't vaccinate. I woke up and, early on, my kids got some stuff in the hospital when they were born that right now, hindsight being what it is, they would never get. And I warned my son too, and they were going through this with my grandbaby, and even other vaccines. I had a talk with him about this just the other day again, and I'm really glad to hear that the two of them are taking this seriously, and they got a beautiful, healthy baby, and they're gonna try to keep that trend going. I'm gonna go in. I told you, and you should know this too. If you've got young children, they're always gonna try to get you on a constant schedule. Oh, when's your next wellness check? And when you're gonna come next time you're coming in and do your wellness check, and we'll load you up on a few more vaccines and ask you more intrusive questions and blah blah blah. You don't have to go into the doctors unless your child is sick. I just want you to know that. You are not legally obligated to go in every 60 or 90 days or whatever, to do a wellness check. They want to do a wellness check, they can call, hi, Mrs. Smith, how's the baby doing? Baby's doing fine, thanks for calling. No, you don't have to go in there and really do much of anything. Same with the vaccines. You don't even need those. Prove it. Is there a health condition that exists that maybe your child would benefit from that? And usually the answer is no. That the inclusion of a vaccine often would increase the risk of health-related impacts and negative health outcomes, as they say now. So that's coming up, an interview I'm looking forward to. It's been a couple of years since I had Mary on the show. I think the last time I saw her, she came out. We flew her out here. We had a speaking engagement up at the State House in Boston. Back in the COVID 1984 hysteria, early part of that, where they were about to foist on us mandated vaccines, and she was out here. And the next day we traveled up to, I believe it was Manchester, New Hampshire, or somewhere thereabouts. There was another group up there fighting the same thing. So she came out, spent a couple of days with us, and drove her all across the countryside. Great patriot, and full of some great information. I'm going to have her on real soon. Pipe bomber, I don't know what to tell you, folks. I'm not going to buy into this yet. This Brian Cole, he looks like he may well just be a poor, vulnerable kid that's caught up in this. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, we still haven't. I don't think we haven't heard enough and researched enough on the one that they did the gait analysis on. All right, matched it with pretty good certainty to an officer, former officer of the Capitol Police, and the CIA asset now too. Things a little hokey there. Yeah, I ain't even gonna go into Rachel Levine anymore. That's all just a distraction. But pay attention to all those nonprofits that are about to be exposed in Minnesota. All right, don't think that Minnesota is unique. It is a symptom of some of the same exact things that play in throughout the country. Look at the nonprofits and how they're related. Get yourself used to tracking the money. Always follow the money, right? And have faith that you can do something. Right? Don't have some hope. I know it seems hopeless, but it's not. These guys, they make horrible mistakes when they're under pressure. So bring some pressure on them. Ilhan Omar likes to sound confident when she comes out with her little press conferences and musings and whatnot. and cheap shots at Donald Trump, but she is petrified. She knows she's on the verge of probably just getting scooped up and arrested. She's a criminal, and she knows it. Nancy Pelosi, she decided not to run, not because she didn't enjoy getting all kinds of insider stock trading tips and options and whatnot and being bought out. Oh, no. She was afraid she was actually going to wind up, in the limelight and getting charged too. And she may still be. I hope she is. Another political monster for sure. I don't know. So that's it. I apologize for those that missed the early morning live stream. But they keep making new changes here on the platform. And I do my best to understand how they work, sync them up with the streaming software, and try to make sure we get it out there every day in a competent form for everybody to enjoy. So, that being said, we want to, again, wish everyone a late Thanksgiving, an early Merry Christmas. We'll probably see you again, I'm sure, before Christmas time. But do enjoy some time with your family. Be thankful for the things that you got. We all got blessings in life, and we should acknowledge them. That's about it. I think I've talked myself out. Been on here for another couple hours. So yeah, I love and appreciate y'all. Share the link around where you can. Next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Yeah, if you ever missed the live stream up here, head right over to republicbroadcasting.org. The live direct audio is up there all the time. And I don't know what happened, but a little while back, it's like when there was a changing of the guards over at Twitter, and Elon Musk took over, my X account blinked back on again. YouTube, all my stuff went down. They just took everything down when I shared what we had done when COVID came through the house and the things that we took to get better. They frowned upon, and I didn't get 30 days in timeout or anything like that. I didn't have any strikes against me, actually. My account just went black, just went down. And after some of the hearings and things that were taking place on the censorship, one of them turned back on, right? One of the three. And I don't think I'm going to do a lot on there. I don't trust it anymore. I'm not going to put a lot of content on, but what I may do, all right, what I may do is put out a limited amount of things on these channels, on YouTube. And we'll see what happens. I don't know. I'm not going to get too, I don't know. Like I did before, I got too attached, too comfortable with it. I said, you know what? I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not lying. I'm not promoting violence or hurt anybody. I said, that'll be there. And it wasn't. They literally punish you for telling the truth. So I'm not comfortable anymore with them. I'll stream some stuff there. But if I shut it off, all right, if you get 15 minutes into it and you're on YouTube and all of a sudden the stream's gone, all right, they go over to Rumble. All right, so far I've had no problems over there, but go over to Rumble, find the channel, and make sure you're subscribed to the notifications on that platform, because I'm just not going to moderate my speech to be able to be on that one platform. I'm just not impressed with them. I'm willing to stream some limited stuff there, but if you see it blank out, it's only because I'm not letting them censor me. It's me censoring them, I guess. All right, well, so do what you got to do. Anyways, love and appreciate y'all. Fly your flags high. Keep your powder dry. Love each other out there. We'll see you next week.